There is a wrong belief that the Native American people lived in hide tents and were extremely primitive in terms of architecture and construction. That couldn't be further from the truth, so dark histories thought, why not look at the history of the famous Cliff Palace, its inhabitants, and its mysterious abandonment. Cliff Palace is the largest cliff dwelling in North America. The structure built by the Ancestral Puebloans is located in Mesa Verde National Park in their former homeland region. The cliff dwelling and park are in Montezuma County, in the southwestern corner of Colorado, in the southwestern United States. The Ancestral Puebloans, also known as the Anasazi, were an ancient Native American culture that spanned the present-day Four Corners region of the United States, comprising southeastern Utah, northeastern Arizona, northwestern New Mexico, and southwestern Colorado. They are believed to have developed, at least in part, from the Oshara tradition, which developed from the Pocosa culture. The people and their archaeological culture are often referred to as Anasazi, meaning ancient enemies, as they were called by Navajo. Contemporary Puebloans object to the use of this term, with some viewing it as derogatory, and as such dark histories will not use it. The Ancestral Puebloans lived in a range of structures that included small family pit houses, larger structures to house clans, grand pueblos, and cliff-sided dwellings for defense. They had a complex network linking hundreds of communities and population centers across the Colorado Plateau. They held a distinct knowledge of celestial sciences that found form in their architecture. The kiva, a congregational space that was used mostly for ceremonies, was an integral part of the community structure. It was round and built partly underground. Archaeologists continue to debate when this culture emerged. But based on terminology defined by the Pecos classification, suggests it was around the 12th century BC, during the archaeologically designated Early Basket Maker II era. During the earliest excavations, researchers identified Ancestral Puebloans as the forerunners of contemporary Pueblo peoples. 3 UNESCO World Heritage Sites located in the United States are credited to the Pueblos: Mesa Verde National Park, Chaco Culture National Historical Park, and Taos Pueblo. Ancestral Pueblo people in the North American Southwest crafted a unique architecture with planned community spaces. Population centers such as Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, and Bandelier National Monument have brought renown to the Ancestral Pueblo peoples. They consisted of apartment complexes and structures made of stone, adobe mud, and other local material, or were carved into canyon walls. Developed within these cultures, the people also adopted design details from other cultures as far away as contemporary Mexico. These buildings were usually multi-storied and multi-purposed and surrounded by open plazas and view sheds. Hundreds to thousands of people lived in these communities. These complexes hosted cultural and civic events and infrastructure that supported a vast outlying region hundreds of miles away linked by transportation roadways. Throughout the southwest Ancestral Puebloan region, the inhabitants built complexes in shallow caves and under rock overhangs and canyon walls. Unlike earlier structures and villages atop mesas, this was a regional 13th century trend of gathering the growing populations into close, defensible quarters. There were buildings for housing, defense, and storage. These were built mostly of blocks of hard sandstone, held together, and plastered with adobe mortar. Constructions had many similarities, but unique forms due to the unique rock topography. The best-known site is at Mesa Verde, with many well-preserved cliff dwellings. This area included common Pueblo architectural forms, such as kivas, towers, and pit houses, but the space restrictions of these alcoves resulted in far denser populations. The main attraction here is the Cliff Palace, but there is also the structure known as the Mug House. A typical cliff dwelling of the period, was home to around 100 people who shared 94 small rooms and 8 kivas, built right up against each other, and sharing many walls. Builders maximized space and so all areas were available for building. It should be noted that not all the people in the region lived in cliff dwellings. Many colonized the canyon rims and slopes in multifamily structures that grew to unprecedented size as populations swelled. Cliff Palace was constructed primarily out of sandstone, mortar and wooden beams in a process that started in 1190 CE and continued through to 1260 CE. The sandstone was shaped using harder stones, and a mortar of soil, water and ash was used to hold everything together. The builders used chinking to ensure stability and to fill in any gapes. Many of the walls were decorated with colored plasters, which were the first to erode over time. One of the most obvious anomalies are the small size of the entrances, the explanation being that at the time the average man was under 5 feet 6 inches, while the average woman was closer to 5 feet, so there wasn't a need for large doors. Cliff Palace contains 23 kivas and 150 rooms and had a population of approximately 100 people. One kiva, in the center of the ruin, is at a point where the entire structure is partitioned by a series of walls with no doorways or other access portals. It is thought that Cliff Palace was a social, administrative site with high ceremonial usage. Archaeologists believe that the Cliff Palace contained more clans than the surrounding Mesa Verde communities due to the higher ratio of rooms to kivas. Cliff Palace has a room-to-kiva ratio of 9:1 whilst the average room-to-kiva ratio for a Mesa Verde community is 12:1. This ratio of kivas to rooms may suggest that Cliff Palace might have been the center of a large group of citizens that included surrounding small communities. A large square tower is to the right and almost reaches the roof of the cave. It was in ruins by the 1800s. The National Park Service carefully restored it to its approximate height and stature, making it one of the most memorable buildings in Cliff Palace. It is the tallest structure at Mesa Verde, standing at 26 feet tall, with 4 levels. Slightly differently colored materials were used to show that it was a restoration. It would be mysteriously abandoned by 1300, with no evidentiary reason as to why. Some believe that this was due to a series of megadroughts that interrupted food production systems. Other theories is that it was due to an outside threat was too large to handle. Either way, it will remain a mystery as to why they would choose to leave this highly defensible and magnificent structure. It would be rediscovered in 1888 by Richard Wetherell and Charlie Mason while they were out looking for stray cattle. Sadly, this would rapidly accelerate its natural decay. Uncontrolled visits and commercial exploration have used everything from pick and shovel to dynamite to recover all types of artifacts. In the end, Cliff Palace has been heavily damaged. Dark histories marvels at people like the Ancestral Puebloans and the monuments of construction they managed to create. But like all societies, they were impacted by events that afflicted their ability to continue. No doubt to have left such a stronghold they would have had a very good reason. We believe it was completely natural and most likely based on drought, as there is no archaeological evidence of conflict within Cliff Palace. Thank you for watching. Please drop a like and subscribe.